Welcome to the Unveiling Shadows podcast. I'm your host, Kimberly Mosby. Join me as I dive into powerful stories of resilience and strength. In each episode, I sit down with guests who have faced similar journeys of coercive control, financial manipulation, and personal invasion. Together, we uncover the shadows, share our experiences, and inspire others to reclaim their lives. Tune in, listen, and be a part of the community that stands tall against the forces that seek to control us. Hello, and welcome to Unveiling Shadows podcast. I'm your host, Kimberly Mosby, and this is the show where we uncover hidden truths, challenges the status quo, and explore the mysteries that often go unnoticed. Today's guest is Kenneth Roylance. His story is both alarming and thought-provoking. His troubles began in 2009 after reporting chemical fumes near a military base to the EPA. Soon after, he found himself the target of relentless microwave and chemical attacks carried out by unseen forces. As he analyzed these experiences, he uncovered what he believes to be highly advanced interdimensional government technology capable of untouchable invisibility. Since 2018, Kenneth has been on a mission to warn the public about these covert operations and their far-reaching implications. This conversation will challenge conventional understanding of the science, surveillance, and reality itself. Please join me in welcoming Kenneth to the show. Welcome, Kenneth. How are you?
Thank you. Hanging in there, Kimberly.
I know how that goes.
Well. Yeah,
You definitely
right.
know how that goes. Can you briefly introduce yourself and tell us your experience about being a targeted individual?
Sure. Yeah, like you said, back in 2009, at that time, I had this condition called chemical sensitivity, and I couldn't really get any help with it from doctors. They didn't understand it. But I could sense chemicals that other people couldn't, and they would cause me harm. It'd make me ill. I'd have brain fog, that sort of thing, a lot of fatigue. And so one day, I just started noticing these fumes outside, and they really baffled me. I didn't know where they were coming from. And it seemed like every half hour, these fumes would erupt, and I
And you could
could
smell
smell them.
them? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I could smell them,
Yeah.
but other people couldn't. And looking back on it, I think there was a car just going around the neighborhood spraying. They weren't after me. They were just, I think it was some sort of military chemical dumping operation. And so later, I would go around town and I'd notice the chemicals around town as well. Uh, different spots would have different concentrations. They seem to be more focused around the river and the local Coast Guard base. And so this kept going on. As time went on, it became more pervasive. I just noticed it everywhere. And so I called the EPA and filed a complaint about, it was mainly the Coast Guard base was doing it. It was right around there.
Okay.
And so they said they'd check it out. In 2 days, I guess they're going to do an inspection maybe on Monday. And then Sunday, the fumes stopped. And then they resumed maybe Wednesday, and they came back gradually. And then after a few days, it was just all the time. And they contacted me, the EPA, and they said, we checked out the area, we couldn't find anything. And I said, yeah, they knew you were coming. They stopped right before you got there. And even if they didn't stop, I don't know if they would have found anything.
Right.
Because I don't think they know how to even measure this stuff. There are no particles or anything like that. It's just fumes.
Yeah.
And the strange thing about them is that when they spray these fumes or when they dump them, they just disappear. After a few minutes, they're gone. If they dumped it like a barrel of chemicals a few feet away, you'd notice them. But then after, I don't know, 5 minutes or so, they'd be gone. They evaporate so fast. And I figured out this must be some new form of chemical dumping that they're doing. Normally when they have waste chemicals they want to get rid of, they take them to a facility and they burn them. And I guess that might be kind of costly. I don't know. But this way they don't have to. I think they spray them from cars, they dump them in the rivers, and they just evaporate. And so it sounds great, but as long as they're doing the dumping, if they don't stop, the fumes are still originating. They're still, collecting in the air, and you're going to
It's
breathe
still
them.
in the environment.
So,
Yeah.
so people
Yeah.
were breathing these things nonstop. And my brother, who lived right across the street from the Coast Guard base, I don't know, less than a year after this dumping started, both his cats died of what I think was cancer. He never had it
Yeah.
checked out, but
Yeah.
they, like, one withered. It just withered away. It was it was strange because I was watching his cat and I didn't notice anything at first. They went on vacation for a couple of weeks, and I was there house sitting watching the cats,
Mhm.
and I didn't notice it at first. But one of them might have been a little on the thin side. But while I was there, he just became emaciated so fast. And then they came home, and a couple of weeks later, the cat was dead. And then maybe 4 months after that, the other one died. Same thing. And they never took the cat to the vet, but I would think only cancer does that. Cancer,
Yeah.
it seems like, moves that fast.
Yes.
So, and then I moved out of that area, moved to a different city, and, they started attacking me. I became the target of these chemical attacks. And so I'd get home, I'd go out in the town, come home, park the car in the driveway, get out, and there were fresh chemicals swirling around the yard. And I said, well, maybe they just did some dumping in the area. They just drove a car around and dumped. I didn't think they were attacking me. And then it happened 2 more times. Like the next day it happened, and the day after that it happened. And then it occurred, I tried to deny it. Our government doesn't do that. We're free. They
Right.
have a good government. But then on the third day, I said, yeah, I guess they are doing it. I couldn't deny it. And
Because you
and
could
then
see the vapor. You could see the vapors, right?
I couldn't see it.
You
I
couldn't
couldn't
see
see
any?
it, but it
Okay.
was strong, and I could smell
You
them.
could
They were
smell it.
when they
Yeah.
sprayed the yard, if you're in the path, it's very strong. And so the thing is, like I said, these things disappear in like 5 minutes. So it's not like I can call somebody and say, come out and check out my yard. It's full of chemicals, because they're gone in 5 minutes.
Yeah. Unless you do a soil or a water
Even
sample,
I don't think
even then.
it's just gone. Like I said, well, the stuff is so volatile, they could spray a T-shirt and it wouldn't even adhere to it. It would just be gone.
Hmm.
I don't know how they do it.
Okay.
But anyway, after that, the attacks became more constant. They started spraying the house. When I went out driving, it's hard to believe, but they would have cars in front of me spraying the roads. And so one time I tried driving to New York. I have relatives up there. And just to get out of the area, I thought it might be good for me. And the whole way up, they had cars in front of me spraying. If I tried to take a different route, if I turned off, the spray would go away if I turned off the road. But then they had cars behind me that would come up and pass me. They go really fast, get in front of me, and then those cars would spray me. So you couldn't get away from it.
Yeah.
So all the way up to New York, I had cars spraying me. Probably, it seemed like I call them goons, these people that do this stuff. And so it seemed like I didn't have cars following me from North Carolina, where I live, all the way up to New York. They would just come out. When I entered their area, these
Right.
local goons would come out, and they'd be the new cars spraying me. And then when I got away from them, they would fall off, and I'd get new goons in the next area. And so, yeah, it was all the way up there. Yeah, when I got to New York, I could tell. I saw some of the people doing it, and I could tell they were just locals, and they weren't people from North Carolina.
They have their interconnection, however that is, that they use to communicate.
I don't know where they get
to let you know where you're at. Yeah.
Pardon me?
I said they have their way of intercommunicating to let everyone know where you're at.
Right. They're very networked.
Yep.
And so I was wondering, and then when I was up in New York, I had a gang of locals spraying me with chemicals. Like if I stayed in a hotel, they'd pump chemicals through the walls. And so I'm like, who are these people? And so wherever I go, they can round up a group of goons to attack me. And I'm wondering, well, what were they doing before I got there? What kind of goon work were they doing before I got there? And then when I leave, what are they going to go back to doing? What are these people doing? It's like a secret army that they've got.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just doing bad things. It's like, and we don't hear anything about this.
well, they're not going to tell us. It's very malevolent. That's for sure.
Right.
It's, yeah.
Right, exactly.
And it's like, I think I've asked other people if they were asked to do something like this to another person, if they would agree to it. And the answer for me is no. I wouldn't like do this to another person to make them think they were going crazy, or do a sensitivity campaign on someone, or spray them with anything. Like, it just, life is too short. So
they have
say.
they have no problem finding people. If all these people quit, they'd probably have people lined up around the block to take their place. I mean, it's frightening.
It is frightening.
I move frequently. I was moving like every year, and it didn't matter where I went to. There was always one or two neighbors that would get recruited, and they would help in the attacks. And never
that's how it works. Yeah.
Never failed. So it's money. They must be paying them good money. And then when I would move to a new apartment, just before I moved, like that person who was attacking me just stayed home all day. They didn't work. But then when I moved, just like 2 weeks before I moved, that person got a job. They got a 9-to-5 job. So they relocate them into a federal job. Yeah.
Really convenient.
Yeah. And I think the lady below me was recruited. I think she got unrecruited for some reason. I don't know. But anyway, I think they gave her a federal job because she gets Columbus Day off. I think you pretty much either have to work at a bank or a federal place to get that holiday. So,
yeah.
Excuse me, they attacked my mouth and my nose.
Yeah, my nose is running a lot. It never used to run constantly. The more they hit me with whatever dirty air or smart dust, whatever you want to call it, chemical warfare, it runs more.
I know part of it is, at least part of it is nanobots. They got these microscopic machines.
Yep.
And anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. But I was getting chemical attacks all the time, constantly, never failed, every minute of the day, chemical attacks. Then, can't remember what year it was, maybe 2014 or so. I drove up again to New York to see a relative, and I had these bumper stickers that I put on my car, and they were advertising my website that talked about the chemical dumping. And I went through DC on the way up, and then I went through DC on the way back. And some big shot must have seen my car. And then after that, when I got home, I started getting microwaved. It's like they upgraded my torture. So that tells me that 2 people got me targeted. But something that's not supposed to happen to anybody happened to me twice because I got an upgrade. Somebody else upgraded me. So then that's when it really started getting serious at that point. So I have to think way back, because at first I couldn't feel the microwaves, but then after about 7 weeks, it's like you become sensitized to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started feeling it at night when I slept, because that's when they really hit you, because it's like you're on the operating table. You can't move. They know you're not going to move, so they can just hit you easily. So after a few weeks, I felt it at night while I'm sleeping. Then after 7 weeks, I felt it all the time, even during the day.
Mm-hmm.
And it seemed to be coming out of the walls, out of the floor, out of the ceiling. I didn't know how they were doing it, but it seemed like they were close range attacks. It wasn't satellites or cell towers, nothing like that. I didn't really know how they were doing it. But and then so that went on, and it would just gradually just increase every so often, and it build up. And then I don't know when it was.
I hear humming when they're hitting me really hard. I hear like a buzzing sound. I mean, that's why I had to sell my condo, because they shorted out a bunch of wires, and I had black marks around the electrical outlets from it. I don't know what you call it.
Like scorch marks.
Surging. Yeah, scorch marks from it surging. And even now in this temporary living situation that I'm in now, I can hear when I'm sleeping, which wakes me up sometimes, the bed kind of vibrating in a sort of humming noise.
I get vibrations.
Yeah.
In the floor, right.
Yeah. I think that they can actually surge power lines near you in a grid pattern or something.
Antennas, use them like antennas.
Yeah. So I'm not sure exactly how they're doing it, but I try to keep everything unplugged around me just so it's not giving off that electromagnetic, dirty electricity.
Yeah, and I've heard them tinkering inside the walls, doing things, falling, ticking inside the walls. I've heard people in the attic, actual people
Yeah.
walking. I usually try to stay on the second floor when I'm in an apartment. I try to have somebody above me and somebody below me because I don't want any goons in the attic. I don't want to be next to that.
Mm-hmm.
But I have heard people up in the attic. I've heard them talking up there just briefly, like somebody dropped something in the attic and I could like point to it. It's like right there. And then I heard somebody talk. So I don't know, was there another, who's he talking to? Is there another person in the attic? I don't know. But usually when they're in the attic, I don't hear any footsteps. I don't hear any creaking of the joists. Except one time I heard like a thud, and then it sounded like somebody took 3 steps, and then that was it. Like maybe they fell off something and got back on it. I heard somebody screwing something into wood. I was standing in my kitchen right above at the sink, and it was right above my head. I could point to it. It's right there. Somebody just screwing. Went for, I don't know, half a minute, and then I heard him drop the screwdriver, but it didn't. And then I heard him like moving around trying to get it, got it. And then it went back to, so I don't know what he was doing.
Something to torture you with?
I don't know. I have no idea. Installing equipment, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's when the microwaving started. And like I said, it just got progressively worse. And then they started putting chemicals in my drink.
Yeah.
In my like soda cans and juice cans. And it's like, I didn't know how they were doing it because I'd bring it home from the store and put it away. And I go get one and it's there. I didn't know how it was happening. And then I was, I don't know, at some point I realized that they had invisibility. I'm not sure what was happening. I think it was by tainting my food and nobody came in. So I figured out somehow they've got invisibility. And then it got confirmed when I was in my apartment and they were using this chemical to irritate my eyes. And they were like spraying the apartment with the stuff. And then when I went out, I got some goggles and I was putting goggles on my eyes. It worked for a few days, but then the chemicals started appearing inside the goggles. It was just like gradual, and the chemicals would appear, and then they just get stronger, 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 and I just have to take them off because it was worse with the goggles because they would just build up.
Right.
And so then I realized that there's somebody here, like right next to me. Excuse me, let's see, they put nanobots up my nose, and I got to wipe it.
Yep. I know. I feel your pain. I've never had such a runny nose in all my life, except for the last 4 or 5 years.
Sometimes it seems like the nanobots carry chemicals and they piggyback on them and they'll go right into my brain. It really bothers me. But so I figured out they got invisibility. And what I did was I went around, I got a big stick, and I started running around the apartment, waving it up at the ceiling. Because I thought, well, maybe they're floating up toward the ceiling. And I just start poking the ceiling, poking the corners, and I couldn't get anything. I didn't touch anybody. And so for a long time, I knew they had this invisibility that I couldn't touch them. I didn't know how it worked. And I thought to myself, boy, there isn't even a theory that describes this. Usually everything has a theory, right?
Right.
I haven't heard a theory about this. This seems pretty big. So I don't know, I think 2 years went by, and then I finally heard the theory. I was watching YouTube, and they were talking about the possibility of a 4th dimension. And if somebody could enter that 4th dimension, they would be invisible to you. They would have access to you, but you couldn't touch or see them. And it's like, yeah, nobody got these invisible people around me. I never hear anything. Nobody sneezes and nothing. It's like they're in a different world. So with this 4th dimension, it's kind of like 2 worlds superimposed on each other.
Right.
And they can sort of go back and forth between them. And I know it sounds crazy.
I know.
So I find
I've heard about that. I haven't done a whole lot of research in it about the parallel universes, but there are a lot of people that have, well, if you can look at the Montauk project where they were trying to time travel, that one's a good example of ripping through time. And I don't think we're meant to do that. So I think the more rips that are into the timeline, the worse off we are. And I don't know. I'm just speaking in my opinion because I'm not a scientist and I don't, really research the parallel universes entirely, but it's possible. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of things going on and a lot of things they don't tell us about. Yeah. I was wondering, why haven't I heard about this? And I think they just don't want to scare you. They don't want you to think that these things are real.
Or they just don't want us to know. They just want us to be in the dark, which is
Yeah.
why, I spoke out against the establishment. And that's when I ended up being hit really hard as a target. And obviously you did the same thing with your bumper stickers and talking about the chemicals and their adverse side effects. So, and then that's when you became targeted. So that's understandable because they don't want people to get together to talk about it, to understand it on a level where we have a community that is supporting each other so that we can move forward together.
Right. Yeah, I've had a lot of trouble. I've been reaching out to podcasts that are into conspiracy theories, like JFK assassination, Bigfoot, alien abductions, those kind of things.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to have anything to do with me. So I'm lucky I found you, another targeted person.
Yeah.
I think some people might have been afraid, they don't want this to happen to them. But I think as long as you've got a platform like you do, you're on YouTube and you can talk about it, I think that helps protect you a little. I hope they don't increase your targeting. Do you think they increase your targeting because of what you're doing?
I think they did initially, but then they figured out that I was going to do it anyway.
Keep doing it, right.
So I just push through the moments where I can feel my shoulder blades start to tighten up or they're hitting me in my solar plexus area. And I just push through it because I feel I'm being more helpful. I'm helping people recognize and letting them know that they're not alone in this program. In fact, I took to X the other day and I put forwarded a video to my timeline that had Robert Duncan on there talking about the MK Ultra direct energy warfare that they're doing and that they haven't stopped it. And I tagged Elon Musk, Pam Bondi, Tulsi Gabbard, and Kash Patel along with the president. And I said, when are you going to stop these programs? And I said, seriously, I want to know an answer to the question.
Yeah, you wonder if do they know about them or do they not want to know?
They know.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people have trouble even talking about it because it just pushes people away.
Yeah.
People are like, oh no, I'm a rational person. I don't listen to that.
I've gotten that before. They kind of look at you like they're disgusted with you or the look on their face is just weird. But I think that they're being mind controlled to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you got a disease and they don't want to catch it. But like going back to those podcasts that I tried to get on that they didn't want me. 2 people was emailing people and 2 people told me I was crazy. You're nuts if you think about that, if you think that's going on. But if I went to them with a story like, oh, I saw Bigfoot or I was abducted by aliens, they'd be interested in that. But being attacked by the government, they don't want to hear that. And it's like we're conditioned to not think that can be real. Whereas the government actually has a history of going after people, murdering them, torturing them, outside the law even, just doing it because they can. It's a power thing. A lot of people will tell me, well, why would they go to that kind of trouble? Why would they be all over you? And I think the main thing is, well, first of all, people who initiated my targeting, probably all they did was pick up a phone. And that's no trouble.
Correct.
And then people actually doing it, it's their job. They're getting well paid. It's like going to McDonald's, see somebody flipping burgers and say, well, why are you going to all that trouble? He's trying to get money. He's trying to live his life. And then, governments, they attract these people that love power And when people get in their way, especially little people, they want to just be able to snap their fingers and say, go take care of that guy. That's power. And so it's not trouble if they want to do it. This is something they want.
You're
so
right.
That's no trouble. And people, they're not taught to think how governments are. They're thinking government is an individual, or they're thinking government has to act responsibly, and they don't. They've got tons of money. They can do whatever they want. So it's really discouraging. I mean, it's like having with the government after you, it's like fighting God.
Right.
You got nowhere to go. You can't tell anybody. No one's going to help you. Anything you can do can't match their powers. So yeah, it's really frustrating. And I think they want you to just kill yourself. I mean, I think that's what they want to do.
Oh,
and then
absolutely. Absolutely. I think a lot of people have unalived themselves because of this program, and it's quite disheartening and disgusting, actually. Yeah.
So,
what did you do then after you moved a few times, figured out that you couldn't get away from it?
Well, this is interesting because, I thought I finally said, okay, here's a theory that explains this, the fourth dimension.
Okay.
This has to be it, because they can enter my apartment. They can put things inside my drinks that aren't open. One time I was to drink something that didn't have chemicals in it. I'd go to the store, get a bottle of water, and I'd be running through the store, moving it around like this. And then I'd check out, and then I'd run out to the parking lot, moving it. And then I'd try to drink it. And then I could drink it and it was clean. But then halfway through, I was guzzling it. Halfway through, it became chemicals. They put chemicals in it. Halfway through my drinking of it, I was just guzzling that thing. And so they can do just about anything. They've got solid through solid technology. They've got untouchable invisibility. And I was thinking, well, I mean, that makes sense, because if I can't touch them, then walls can't touch them. So they can walk through walls. They can put things inside you. And even a lot of times they'll put gas inside my esophagus, inside my windpipe. And a few times they'll pump gas into my windpipe, and I'll just open my mouth and I'll have gas coming out of it like the tailpipe of a car, just constant. I can't see it, but I can feel it.
Yeah.
It's just rushing out. And they did that for about a minute and a half. And for me to breathe, I'll have to exhale, like do a big, get it all out, and then take short breaths in. But luckily, they didn't do it too long. But they still do that to a degree. They can put stuff right in my windpipe, up my nose. Right now, they're putting nanobots. They have these nanobots. Like when they started microwaving me, it was mostly just guns, like rays shooting me from the walls and things like that.
Yeah.
Then they started, my primary attack now is nanobots, which are like small microscopic machines that can make their own microwaves. And they can put those on my head, up my nose, in my eyes, in my mouth. The main things they like to microwave are, number one, the brain, number two, the genitals, and then number three, the liver. Those are the main things. But that, then they'll do joints. If I try to exercise, they'll microwave the pads of my feet so the fat disappears and I have trouble walking. So yes, nanobots became the primary method of my attack. And like I said, when they put them on me, I don't feel like I'm getting sprayed. There's nothing like that.
Because it's invisible.
They're just there.
Yeah, it's invisible.
And they're just there.
Yeah.
So I started, because they're microwaving me, and my brain is always thinking, how are they doing this? What are they doing? Is there any way out of it? Your brain's constantly going in the background every day, every moment you're awake and doing your things. So I thought about it now. And so it seemed like this fourth dimension, or this 4D world that they can inhabit, they can hide in.
Yeah.
I was wondering, why is it even there? What's it? Why is there an area? Why is there a restricted space that I can't go to? Why does it exist? And then I was thinking, I think everything has that. Everything has a restricted area where they don't want you to go. Like your refrigerator, the components are inside, the compressor, the fans, whatever.
Yeah.
They tuck them inside the refrigerator, put a panel on it, and then shove the whole thing up against the wall because they don't want you going in there.
Yeah.
because you could hurt yourself, you could break the refrigerator, invalidate your warranty. I don't know. But so everything's like that. A clock has gears or electronics, and they're tucked away on the inside. Everything you need for that to work that clock's on the outside. Read the time, you can set the time, change the batteries if you have to. So every object has like inner workings that are tucked away on the inside. And I said, well, I guess that's how the universe is constructed. Its inner workings are tucked away on the inside in this other area. And then I was thinking, well, what are the inner workings? I didn't know it had inner workings. And then I figured, well, it must be the fabric of space, what creates gravity. Because without gravity, you got nothing, right? You just got debris floating around. Nothing can come together and make planets and stars. And then I was thinking about it some more, and I go, that makes sense. Because, if you got just imagine empty space. You go out into outer space, and there's nothing there. There's no gas, nothing, no atoms, nothing. But then you put a big planet there, and all of a sudden you have gravity, right? The space changes. And you take the planet away, gravity's gone. Goes back to the way it was. So that tells me that space has properties. Space has characteristics.
Yes.
And that sounds like an object. So space is like any other object and thing. It has inner workings. So that reaffirmed it. And then another thing, I noticed when those chemicals appeared inside my goggles, they just appeared. I didn't feel anybody spraying them in. So that made me think, well, maybe they're in this 4D world, in this fourth dimension, and they're just releasing the chemicals, and this 4D world or whatever is ejecting them. Like the chemicals don't belong there.
Right.
So when they release them, they're 3D things, 3D objects, they get released into the 3D world. It's like a beach ball. You take a beach ball and you hold it down under the water. And then when you release it, it pops up to the surface.
Correct.
I think maybe that's what's going on. So then I was thinking, the fabric of space must be like the ocean, and it's like the bigger the planet, the deeper it kind of sinks into the fabric, and the more it distorts the space. And it all made sense. This is common sense stuff. And, nobody's talking about this. Why are people hearing this from me? Why isn't Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about this?
Right.
So, and then I was thinking later, I said, well, maybe that's how black holes are created. When black holes, it's a star, right? And when the star collapses, it shrinks down and it becomes so dense that it overwhelms the fabric and it punches through and makes a hole. It makes a hole in the 3D world. It overwhelms the fabric, breaks through it, and sinks into the 4D world. And that's why, I think scientists say it's not really there. It's like it shrinks down to a point, which doesn't make any sense. It's still there, but I think it's just hiding in this 4D world.
Yeah.
And
the space and time continuum. But I always tell people that they don't make these movies for no reason. Like they make the movies to either tell you what's going on, to tell you, well, we told you so in this movie, or, whatever. But I feel like these people are making money off of knowing what's happening. And then now a lot of people are waking up and figuring it out. So,
right. Well, like Star Wars, the movie Star Wars, everybody's seen it, right?
Right.
But one thing they would do to go to another planet, they'd have to travel faster than light. So they would go into hyperspace. I think what hyperspace is, it's another dimension. And I think that's how it works. I think in reality, if you believe in aliens, I think that's how they're getting here. They're traveling in this 4D world. And it makes sense because, like I said, the fabric of space is there. So if they go into the 4D world, they can manipulate the fabric and they can use it to propel itself faster than light. Because they're in our 3D world, you can't go faster than light. But who's to say you can't do it in the 4D world? It's a different world, different rules. And
yeah, my friend John Phillips that I'm at the Targeted Justice Rally last August. We were doing a documentary, and I said there was one thing that I didn't touch on, John, that you're going to have to touch on. And he went into it because he seems to think that some of these things that they're using on us is from reverse alien technology.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think definitely what they're using on me is alien technology. I don't know. I can't prove that they got it from aliens.
Yeah.
Or it's possible they just poured trillions of dollars into research. I mean, that's possible. Well, anyway, going back to the traveling in the 4D world, that would
Yeah.
also solve the problem of running into space debris. Because if you're in that 4D world, there won't be any. So it makes complete sense just to do it that way. You won't have space debris to worry about.
Yeah.
What were we talking about? My memory's shot. I'm just so microwaved. I can't hold a thought very long.
But sometimes I call it putting you on neutral. Sometimes they do that on purpose where they make you forget what you're doing or thinking. And so that's what I call it, being put on neutral, where you forget your train of thought. But yeah, so you're talking about the space-time continuum, and then you were talking about Star Trek that everybody's seen.
Yeah.
And the way that they do that, because I said that they make these movies for a reason. They tell you what's going on, but then they deny it.
Right, right. Yeah. They'll say, oh, that's just, and if you try to tell somebody, they'll say, well, that's just a movie.
Or it sounds like sci-fi. I've heard that one before too. Sounds like sci-fi, right. Or it isn't real, or you're delusional, or you're crazy. But I have this white paper here that says the effects of electric and magnetic fields on Lucifer yellow fluorescence, an electro and magnetic metabolization study. So they're using chemicals with direct energy warfare to tell you about it. And so I believe is what they were using on me. It doesn't sound like the same chemical that they're using on you. But then again, we're a bunch of lab rats in an experiment that we didn't consent to be in. And so
I feel like they're doing that to me. They're using they're always changing the attacks. So they'll use a chemical or a microwave and they want to see how I react to it.
Yeah.
And then they want to see what I use for a defense. And then I'll defend myself against it. Then they'll increase the strength, or they'll go to a new attack. Something like that. But yeah, I do feel like I'm being experimented on. I mean, I imagine they have a torture book that, it's massive.
Probably. I would not doubt it.
Yeah.
So this has been going on for quite a few years for you.
Yeah, 15 years. 15 years. The microwaving, probably 10. But yeah, and it always changes. And I'm always wondering, like, well, what's next? What's in store for me? Because I never know. I don't get any communication from them. They don't send me letters saying, hey, we're going to try this on you next. It's just nothing.
Right.
And, I don't get any like, oh, you better be good or we're going to do this. It's nothing. You just get it. And yeah, lately, I don't know when it started. It started a few years ago. I started getting like what felt like ear attacks. And I thought they were just attacking my ears. But it turns out they're brain attacks. It sounds like tinnitus.
Yeah.
I'll get this ringing. And they do two techniques. They'll fill up the room with microwaves, and they'll also use nanobots. When they fill up the room with microwaves, I can turn my head and it sounds like I'm tuning a radio. It just goes. But they also use nanobots, and I think they put them in my ear canals. And so I try to fight it by stuffing my ear canals, filling them up with like tissues or putting plastic wrap over them and stuffing that in there. But it seems like they either make the stuff stronger or they put it in deeper. They're probably even putting it in my inner ear, which I can't even get to. So there's no way. Like today or last night, they were hitting me hard. And I think it's because I was getting ready to talk to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Usually that's what most of my guests say. Some of them don't even show up because they're torturing them so bad that they can't even push past it to get here.
They don't want you to think coherently. Yeah. They want you to be like go on this podcast and be a babbling idiot.
Yeah.
Which I think the last one I was, because I wasn't really prepared for it. And they were hitting my head so hard. And I was just so frustrated, and I was barely making any sense.
Well, you're making complete sense here. But yes, I've had the ear things, and it depends on where I'm sitting. So sometimes in my office, it's worse than if I am at my place where I'm staying right now. And then sometimes I can hear a click. It's almost like a click, click. It's a weird, like, popping noise, which I never had that before.
Right. Yeah, sometimes what they like to do is they focus on the areas where I sit and where I sleep. So a lot of times I'll lie down on the sofa, and as soon as I put my head down on the pillow, it's like I'm putting my head inside a ball of energy. Like it's there waiting for me. It's not like I put my head down and then they hit me. It's already there. And maybe it's there all day. I don't know. They're just waiting for me. It's like it's hardwired into that one spot. It's really a nightmare. I've got no choice but to just keep going. I mean,
I agree with you. Keep on going. You got to stay strong during all of this.
Right.
Is there any suggestions that you would give to other people that have been targeted on how to protect themselves?
Oh, boy, yeah. Just don't give up. Don't get discouraged. Talk about it. Put up a website. That's what I did. And, you can't search my website anymore on Google. It used to be you could.
Of
but
course.
Google's really clamped down. Yeah, you can't search it anymore.
So what is your website? Can you tell people?
Yeah, right. I got it's chemspray.weebly.com. And it goes into more detail.
Beautiful.
I've got a timeline where I detail the attacks, what they can do. And I talk about the 4D world more.
Okay.
I got plenty of pictures to look at. I think people will like it. I put a lot of work into it. I've been doing it for probably the past 10 years, and it's just been, as I learn more, I just add to it.
Perfect. I think that that's great, because I think the more that we document it, the more websites we have out there, the more we keep building this community, the better it is for them not to deny that they're experimenting on civilians against their consent. Yeah.
And people think, they would never go to that kind of trouble, but why not? I mean, those are the kind of people that are running the government, and they got tons of money. There's nothing stopping them.
Correct.
And you can't catch them. You can't, especially with this technology. That it's like they're untouchable. And there's no oversight. There's who's gonna catch them. They're invisible, and they can shoot. That's the thing. They can shoot microwaves at you. And I go to the doctor, but the doctors can never find anything. There's no evidence of microwave attacks, because it's like it wears out your organs. It seems like it attacks minor blood vessels. It attacks things that don't really show up.
Exactly.
And I think that's what mostly the effects I'm getting are that it just feels like I'm getting older. Like I said, my memory's going, my joints are going.
Yeah. Well, they want us to have
the energy.
Rapid aging so that they can off us, sooner. But we're not. We're slow aging mammals. That's what we're supposed to be, a slow aging mammal. So, yeah, I agree with you. They're accelerating our aging through chemicals. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. Like I said, it's really hard for me to get on a podcast. So I'm really thankful for the opportunity.
Yes. Well, I'm grateful for you. I'm honored to have had you on the podcast. And I am grateful that you had the courage to step up and do so and give us your information and your website so that people can go and discover more, because education is the key here. So I'm grateful for you. Okay. Thank you. Stay strong.
Right. Thank you. You too. Take care.
Hey, you too.
Thank you for listening to the Unveiling Shadows podcast. I hope today's episode has shed light on the experiences that too often remain hidden. If you or someone you know has a story to share, please reach out to me. Remember, you're not alone and your voice matters. Follow me on social media and subscribe to the podcast for more inspiring stories. Until next time, stay strong and keep unveiling the shadows.